Welcome into Sports Around the Bar, your favorite sports talk show, I'm sure. We're back. Maybe a little more crooked than usual, but we're back. And we're glad you're here to talk sports with us because, man, Thursday Night Football was winding down. I was like, I can't believe I sat through this boring game. Just watched the whole thing. Outside of the targeting they've had on a couple of receivers, not a lot of eventful stuff going on. Myles Garrett cleared that up for me. He said, hold on. You want a show? I'll give you a show. Drew, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the rest of the Thursday Night Football. And then we're going to move into Sunday, and we're going to talk about everybody's teams but ours. So welcome. Welcome in.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome to your house.
Thanks for having me. This is great. This is my first time on the show. I can't wait to talk about everything. Jacob, good to see you, man. Glad you're here. Brian says, do not touch his mason. He has a mason jar he does not want us to touch.
Well, I'm kind of with you. But we're going to talk about Mason Rudolph. We're going to talk about guilt and innocence in this show pretty much all the way through. I'm sure Myles Garrett, whatever his name is going to come up several times through the show, but we'll start by talking about him, Drew. We got to do it because this is the most interesting thing to come out of that game. Maybe you could say the Juju Smith-Schuster hit was kind of a little shady. Maybe you could say the Deontay Thompson hit that knocked him out of the game was shady too. Was there any doubt in your mind that the Myles Garrett deal was like one of the worst plays we've seen in NFL history, probably, when it comes to like just pure road rage, whatever you want to call it, field rage, where he just lost himself and said, I got to make somebody hurt? That described that well enough for you?
Ray, great to see you, man. To be honest, it's something else, man. I mean, it really is honestly something else. It's something that we definitely don't see every day in the NFL. It's something that you don't expect to see when you watch an NFL game or even a college game or a high school game for that matter. It's something that takes you just kind of like by shock. But I think when you slow it down and you look at everything, there's not a single innocent party in that whole entire thing.
Sure.
Maybe minus the Steelers' offensive lineman that's like a giant among men trying to hold everyone back.
Sure. Yeah, I'm kind of with you there. There was fault all the way around. Again, I don't really necessarily fault Pouncey for what he did. If that was your quarterback, how would you want your offensive lineman to respond? Again, I know he was kicking Garrett in the head and everything, but did you see what he did to him?
Kicking, stomping, I mean...
Everything else. I know he was out there curb stomping, Drew, but I don't care.
He was doing his best...
I just don't care.
He was doing his best Cream Hunt impression as he could.
Exactly. Except it wasn't a woman. And probably was less defenseless. But let's go through the whole thing. Just in case you missed it, just in case you've been living with your head in the sand, we'll go to Ken's comment here, and then I'll describe the whole thing. Ken says Myles had a bad play, but Mason sucks and he creeped on the Steelers page, and they were saying that Mason Rudolph deserved it. I haven't seen a lot of Steelers fans saying Mason Rudolph deserved it. And I, for one, don't think Mason Rudolph deserved it, and I'll tell you why here in just a second. He says by no means does he support hitting him with the helmet, though. We understand that. I think everybody agrees Myles Garrett took it too far, right? Is anybody... I know some people are like, well, Mason Rudolph did this, and he brought it on him, but nobody's like, that was an appropriate response from Myles Garrett. Everybody pretty much agrees he went overboard, right?
Well...
Yes, I'm sure there's one guy out there, but for the most part, most people kind of agree Myles Garrett might have taken it a little bit too far. And Ray's saying, yes, both teams are at fault. I think that's why both teams got fined. But let's go over it real quick, because... the way it happened and what I saw.
Right, and just to clarify, the reason we want to go back over it is because all you see on mainstream media
is the swing of the helmet.
Is the swing of the helmet. That's all you see. So
right.
That's the reason why.
And there is more to it. And it starts when, again, I think you need to look at the situation. The Browns are up 21-7. There's about 8 seconds left in the fourth quarter. The game is effectively over.
Right.
Which is even more perplexing to me in this. Myles Garrett, after the swing pass is thrown to the running back, comes in late, hits Mason Rudolph, wraps him up, and while he's still got him, he holds on to him for a couple seconds, doesn't drag him to the turf, and then eventually drags him to the turf and lays on him for a minute. That obviously doesn't sit well with Mason Rudolph, who, again, feels like he's had a cheap shot on him, so he starts to fight back, starts to try to pull the helmet off of Garrett. Too far. And you say you think he should be suspended for trying to pull the helmet off. I, again, am in that kind of category of I would understand a short suspension. Go ahead.
Okay, just to clarify what I was saying is, if twisting off the helmet, I get it. It's like a crime of passion in a sense. Maybe you should just get fined, not suspended. It was the actions afterwards prior to getting hit.
Yeah. Well, okay.
He still went after him.
Yes.
His giant lineman, this guy that literally could cover my doorway, was like, get away from my quarterback. And Mason Rudolph purposely went after Myles Garrett.
Sure, but again, when we're talking about crimes of passion here, Drew, that's totally reasonable from the standpoint of you just got clocked, right? You're upset. I know I said it, but
hold on, he didn't get clocked yet. It was what I was getting before he got hit. Before he got hit with the helmet, Mason still was going after Myles.
I don't know. Again, he was laying on top of him, everything else. Then, obviously, Myles Garrett winds up back on his feet, pulls the helmet off of Mason Rudolph, and that's where things kind of spiral.
Right, but you got to remember that Mason was twisting Myles Garrett's helmet while he was still on his face, trying to get it off of him. And then Myles, a lot bigger man than Mason, was like, dude, this is how you do it.
Sure. And if this word stops.
And then Mason went after Myles, and then Myles hit Mason.
But my point here is
there's
this
a lot
is where
of
it
Mason and Myles here.
Well, let's say Garrett and Rudolph. All right. My point is, as soon as Myles Garrett pulled the helmet off of Mason Rudolph, that should have been the end of it, right? You already showed him up. You already made him look childish. I know Mason Rudolph kind of ran after him, but there were still offensive linemen in between the two guys. He had to swing the helmet over the top of Steelers linemen to crack an unhelmeted player in the head with his own helmet. That's way too far. And that, to me, is why Myles Garrett needs a 16-game suspension. And I know Browns fans are going to say, that's not fair. It wasn't just his fault. It is fair because, again, a good solid shot there, and you could reasonably kill somebody.
Well, you could honestly throw the helmet away and still throw a fit. But instead, he decided to cling on to it and use it as a blunt option.
Right, exactly. And the other thing, Ray says Mason Rudolph started it first in his opinion. I don't think so. I think it started with the cheap hit, and we've seen Myles Garrett do this before. He basically ended Trevor Siemian's year on late hits like that. We've seen him punch Delanie Walker in the face in week 1. He's had cheap shots, and I forget who it was. It might have been Shannon Sharp I heard talking about. He's like, you can't keep playing like this because eventually it's going to catch up with you. This is exactly what happened here. I think this all started because Myles Garrett had to lay a late hit when they'd already won the game on Mason Rudolph. And again, that's just childish. I'm putting a lot of blame on Freddie Kitchens here because if this is Andy Reid, or this is Doug Peterson, or this is Bill Belichick, or any of these respected coaches that have been somewhere for at least a little while, do you think one of their players is going to go swing a helmet at somebody? No, because I'm going to have to go walk back to the bench and deal with those guys. The reason this happened is because Freddie Kitchens does not have control in the locker room. Period.
Ray, good to see you. Ray Pratt, he says, Rudolph doesn't make it happen, bottom line, right? He doesn't deserve that hit with a helmet. But as a team standpoint...
See, I'm not the only one saying it.
He is a backup at best.
Sure, but...
So, does it
make it okay?
Does it disqualify the fact he got hit? I mean, as a person, because he's a backup quarterback in the NFL?
But are we treating it differently? Again, we saw a bunch of jokes. What if this is Tom Brady? What if this is a popular team's quarterback? What if it's even Dak Prescott, like the Cowboys quarterback? Are we seeing all the jokes? Are we seeing all the, maybe he deserved it or he did this? No, they're going to say, this dude just swung a helmet at a starting quarterback in the NFL. He needs to get the electric chair. I mean... Like I said, imagine it was Tom Brady. What kind of response would we be seeing if he just cracked Tom Brady over the head with a helmet? Russell Wilson, Lamar Jackson. You could take any one of these starting quarterbacks, and all of a sudden, this gets a lot worse. Because it's Mason Rudolph, because it's a backup, I don't think people are quite as upset. I think that's why everyone's joking about it. But, again, I think this has to be a 16-game suspension for Myles Garrett. Everyone's like, oh, well, it's at least this year, and it's at least the playoffs for the Browns. But let's face it, the Browns are on life support right now. If they're going to make the playoffs, they pretty much need to win out in their schedule. And, yes, it's an easier one. We talked about that before. But reasonably, if they don't make the playoffs, which is probably what's going to happen, you're throwing away 6 games that don't matter to Myles Garrett. I think you need to punish the team more than that for allowing this to happen, Freddie Kitchens more for allowing this to happen under his watch, and you need to punish Myles Garrett more for this. I think, again, it went from most of the things we saw were reasonable kind of reactions to what was going on. Even Myles Garrett, pulling the helmet off of Mason Rudolph. And if that's where it ends, I think this is a 1 or 2 game suspension at most. The problem is he took things so far above and beyond and put Mason Rudolph in such a bad situation where he really could have done some damage to him, and he's lucky he didn't. I mean, they can file criminal charges against him. It's like boxing. When you cheat in boxing and somebody gets hurt, you can get sued for it. I think there's probably some cause for that too.
Will, good to see you, man. Jacob, also good to see you. Jacob Reynolds, by the way. Will says Rudolph gave Garrett a nut shot before the helmet hit even happened. Yeah, there is a photo of that shot, that kind of that direction. It looks like it more than likely probably happened. Will, you're probably right. Beyond all the hits, beyond the helmet swinging, beyond the suspensions, beyond everything, what really sucks is that the Browns beat a team that they have struggled to beat in the last 5 years,
300 years.
I mean, it sucks.
When the Browns come back, 2002?
It sucks because, Big Ben wasn't there. You could claim all that stuff, but I would still consider the Steelers at this point a more superior team than
both picked them.
than the Cleveland Browns. Absolutely.
Not in the offseason, but we picked them now.
Right. And, you would think that this would be a game that the Steelers should win, and they didn't. And the Browns won it, and everything is destroyed because of one decision, one act upon a guy that you can be defensive of him. You can sit there and say he's a piece of crap. You can say whatever you want. It just sucks because a team that has a chance to probably make a push in their easier part of their schedule, regardless if you think so or not, it takes everything away. Beyond that, what I want to get at is if Myles Garrett is suspended, if it's 16 games, and the Browns do make the playoffs, it should not count as the games towards his suspension.
Right.
It should be 16 regular games. The guy absolutely deserves to be gone for a whole year. One thing that I do want to bring up is Mike Pouncey, and I know everyone wants to defend him and sit there and say, well, it's his quarterback. It's a guy you want to defend. But how long do you keep on punching and kicking a guy on the ground?
As long as you can. When they do that to your quarterback, again, you're making millions of
I'm
dollars.
literally asking that question because
I'm not kidding.
As a human being and as someone that it's not my family, it's a teammate, it's a friend of mine, but I realize the guy's down and done. How long do you keep kicking and hitting him? He didn't do it for a long time.
Well, you say it's not family, but again, a lot of these guys are close with each other. It's one of those situations.
Do you think they're close with Mason Rudolph,
who's been there for a couple of years now? Yeah, because he's still there. He's still working with the team. You're still practicing with him and everything else. You're still going through team meetings with this guy.
If this was Ben Roethlisberger, I would imagine the whole offensive line was there.
Yeah, yes, and you're probably right. I think that might have had something to do with it. But still, yes, I have no problem with Pouncey going as long as humanly possible. It's not Pouncey's job to stop Pouncey. It's the refs and everybody else's job to stop the offensive lineman who is protecting his quarterback and is the guy on the field right now. Because just like the Browns, the Steelers are trying to make a playoff push. If Mason Rudolph gets out, they have already said that Mason Rudolph is their best option to get there.
Right.
They're hurting the team.
Right.
Not to mention, you get paid millions of dollars to protect this guy. Yes, when somebody takes that kind of cheap shot at him, to me, it's what I want to see my offensive linemen do. And maybe this is just fortuitous that we have Taylor Lewan because I think he would have gone for the kill shot if he would have had the chance. But I have no problem with what Pouncey did. I think the suspension is necessary because the NFL has to say you can't stomp somebody, right? You have to suspend him at least a little bit, but 3 games to me sounds about right. I was thinking 2. I think 3 is fine. Brian also says, word is no criminal charges yet, but I did read something that said Mason Rudolph's agent was saying they're not ruling out the possibility. They're talking over their options. They have to press charges before anything else happens, and again, that can happen whenever they feel like it needs to happen, if it needs to happen.
I remember the state can press charges as well. It doesn't have to be the individual.
Right.
So it's even though there's nothing right now, who knows what could happen. Ray Pratt says, not saying it really matters who it was his actions that were wrong. Agreed.
Yes.
And he thinks the offense of the Pittsburgh Steelers was poor. I think that's always.
Well, yes.
I think it's always been the issue ever since Ben Roethlisberger has been down. It's been the upplay of the defensive side of the ball for the Steelers. That's the reason why both me and Jake took the Steelers to win this game. But regardless how you look at it, I want to talk about football as much as. All this is the big story that everyone's talking about. Memes are going crazy. All the news is going nuts. Does the addition of Kareem Hunt change the offensive side of the ball for the Cleveland Browns? Because it seems like the addition of him, because let's all admit it, and I'm definitely the one that has to admit it, Baker Mayfield has not looked great this year at all. It's a sophomore slump 100%.
Well, hold on. And I know he's your guy, and I went to bat for Jared Goff for the same reason. When the offensive line takes a step back, you can't always just pin it on the quarterback that's meant to stand there and throw. And I think that's a big part of Baker Mayfield's struggles. Read this real quick, and then I'll let you get back to it.
I just want to ask you, does Kareem Hunt change what the Cleveland Browns do from now on?
I think he makes things easier. I think he's a weapon, but they've got weapons. and they've had weapons, and
But
they're not quite as successful. Does he make them more dangerous?
It's a lot easier to throw to a running back outside of the pocket than it is a line or a wide receiver.
But Nick Chubb can catch. Nick Chubb's not a bum when it goes to catch the ball too. He helps. He definitely helps, and I think he. Like, without Kareem Hunt, I'd probably say this team's dead in the water. With him, I'm going to say they have, like, the smallest window of hope to make the playoffs. But does this revolutionize the team with him coming back? I'm going to say probably not, because Nick Chubb's not a bad player either. Thomas broke the news for us. He says Mason Rudolph will not press charges. It just came out, and I confirmed it, or at least ESPN confirmed it for me. We appreciate that, Thomas. That is big news. And, that's probably the right thing to do, but... Then again, someone pops me like that on national TV.
Then again, the state can still press charges.
They can if they choose to, yes.
Yeah.
Although usually when the first person lets it go, the state's usually like, we're making a lot of money, off of the NFL and all its revenue. So we'll probably let it go too. Jacob says it's going to take Hunt a few games to get back into the fold, but by the end of the year, he will be a force. I think next year is where it's going to be important because presumably they're going to try to fix this line. I think everybody knows the offensive line in Cleveland hasn't been good enough. When they can block a little bit better, open up some more running lanes for him, and get Baker some more time to throw, we're going to finally see this Cleveland offense we've all been promised.
Yeah, no doubt.
Sean, good to see you. He says, welcome back, Drew. How are you doing? And Jake, he says, who do the Bills play? They play the Dolphins, which sounds like it should be an easy game, but remember, last time they played, that one stayed tough. Any final thoughts on Thursday Night Football? Do you want to talk about the game at all, or do you just want to talk about the fight?
I mean, I tried to talk about it. Sean, I'm doing good.
I just want to talk about the fight.
Sean, I'm doing good. Thank you so much for asking. I actually think if you could take this fight away, which I think Myles Garrett is a huge loss for them, I think the Browns have a chance. The 6th seed is open. You got to remember, it was the Steelers in the 6th seed spot prior to this.
And they still are. They're still a half game. I mean, they're not in the 6th seed, but they're still ahead of them, I should say, in the AFC.
So it's just a matter of winning a few games, right?
Yeah. And they got to play him again. Now without Myles Garrett next week. And
without their center, without the Steelers center,
Pouncey,
they got to play.
But who would you rather be missing? Marquise Pouncey, who is a good player.
I mean,
Myles Garrett, who's got like 10.5, 11 sacks this year, whatever it is.
I definitely, the Browns are the ones that are hurting the most.
I'm with you. And
100%.
this was not a blowout win. Like, this game was somewhat in hand
pretty
much the whole way through.
Until the last touchdown, right.
Exactly. So, again, I think both of these teams pretty much shot themselves in the foot with this fight. You might have ended 2 playoff races here because the AFC still has the Colts, still has the Jaguars, still has the Titans, still has the Chargers and the Raiders who claw back into it. There is a lot of competition.
Well, Jacob's already saying this the 6th seed is his Raiders.
It could be. They're 5-5, right?
Right.
Or are they 5-4? 5-5, I think. Yeah, they've been on bye. Right?
No.
I don't know. They have 5 wins. I know that.
They're on bye.
I absolutely agree with you. They have a lot of competition, and when you're in this kind of race, you cannot afford to lose your best players, and both of those guys are impact makers on both of their teams.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. Okay, we'll move on. My final thoughts on this game is it woke me up in the last 5 seconds. That's all I can say. We'll move on and talk about our first game of the week, which is the Cowboys and Lions, Drew. On the road, Cowboys have to go match up against the Lions. How do you feel about this one? Is there any kind of pause, or are you going with the heavy favorite here?
I think this is a hiccup game. I wouldn't sit there and call it like a what's the normal term for a game that could catch up? I'm just blanking out on it right now. Where it's like it's a
trap game.
A trap game. I think it's more of a hiccup. I wouldn't call it a trap. I think the Cowboys are going to win it. I don't think it's going to be pretty. I think it's because the Lions are been in almost every game that they've been in. They've been really close to winning a lot of these games. I just think the Cowboys are more talented, and that's not a knock on the Lions. It's just they've been together a lot longer than the Lions have.
I also think that they were a couple bad calls on offense away from beating the Vikings, who are a superior team, in my opinion, to the Lions. I think this has to be Cowboys. I think they have to keep this going because the Eagles have one of the easiest schedules after this week in the NFC. They have a good chance of beating them out. The Cowboys need to beat a team like the Lions if they're going to keep up with that. They still play the Eagles towards the end of the season, but this is an important win for them, especially when you're talking about the Eagles playing the Patriots later on, all the way at the end here. The Cowboys need this one, and I think hopefully they come out with that kind of attitude because I think they're looking at that Vikings game like that was a missed opportunity, man. We could have beat one of the best teams in the NFC. We maybe could have snuck our way back into that kind of second seed in the NFC playoff race where we can get a bye in round 1. I think they're going to look at this and say, look, we let it go last week. We've got to get it done here. I'm going Cowboys. You are too. We're going to stick with we're going to go against our show pick in the offseason. We said Lions. Whoa, I say that, but we're going to wind up being right. The Lions win this game.
I don't believe in them. Those guys, whoever they were.
They're beating us right now. They're killing us.
That's why I said I don't believe in them. They're not real people.
Let's talk about Jaguars-Colts.
Real quick, Sean, Man, Thanksgiving I'll be watching football, and I'll be definitely hanging out with my family. Absolutely, you should be watching the Buffalo Bills. A fun and exciting game to watch against the Cowboys. We agree with you, man. Absolutely agree with you. It's going to be a good game. We'll see what happens.
I totally agree with you. Let's talk about the Colts and Jaguars next. If you're ready, AFC South matchup. Jacoby Brissett's going to play with still a sprained LCL. Or I think maybe it was MCL. Don't quote me. I'm not a doctor. But he's playing on a sprained knee.
Sprained knee.
Just encompasses it all. Versus Nick Foles coming back from injury, who's now getting the start. He's had the bye to prepare. Is that enough time, or should this be Gardner Minshew going up against Colts?
No, Gardner Minshew had his chance, that isn't a knock on him. It's just he should not have a chance here. It's Nick Foles' game, and it's Nick Foles' team. What this is actually, in my opinion, the hardest game to choose from, only because you don't really know what you're getting out of the quarterback situation on both teams. Jacoby Brissett has been playing lights out, in my opinion, prior to his injury. It's something that you want to definitely pick heavily with the Colts. But if he's not 100% and Nick Foles is, you kind of got to give it to Nick Foles and what he could possibly do with an offense that's kind of turned itself around. You see the offensive line playing better. I know they didn't look good in London, but take that away. Prior to the London game, these last couple of games, they look like they're playing a lot better. Leonard Fournette's been able to find holes in this offensive line. The offensive line is holding and being able to give the quarterback time to throw the ball. DJ Shark is finding itself in this offense. Chris Connolly is finding himself in this offense.
Well, that's my question. We've seen these guys come alive with Gardner Minshew. Does that continue with Nick Foles, or can we see some regression? Because these guys have failed with Blake Bortles. I know it's Blake Bortles.
But you would think that Nick Foles, a more proven quarterback, the success should be better, right?
But some guys don't gel.
Absolutely.
And when someone's coming back from injury, like Nick Foles has been, it's going to take him time to connect with these guys.
Right.
That's why I'm almost saying, I don't know. I was the guy that's saying I don't think Gardner Minshew is the greatest thing in the world, but maybe they have a better chance of winning this specific game with Gardner Minshew. If you had 2 wins and you're giving up on the season, bring Foles back, see if he's the franchise quarterback you paid him to be. But right now, you're in the heart of the playoff race. I know they only have 4 wins, Drew, but you are reasonably in a playoff position where you win this game against a division rival. You still get the Titans later on. You're still going to play Houston for this division. The Jaguars aren't out of it yet. This is an important game here, and a loss might seal the rest of the season for them. I just don't know that I want my quarterback that has played, 11 snaps with this team, taking this one under center. I don't know. I like Nick Foles. I think he has a chance to do it, but I'm going to go Colts here. Jacoby Brissett simply just doesn't have to make mistakes. I trust this defense to frustrate Jaguars' offense with a newly returning Nick Foles. I'm going to go Colts. I think it's going to be an ugly game. I think there's going to be very little offense because both guys struggle. I'll take the Colts because I have to pick one of them.
Yeah, like I said, it's a difficult decision to make. I like both of these quarterbacks going for the future of the rest of this year. That being said, I also have to pick the Colts. I honestly do. I think Jacoby, even though he's missed a couple of weeks, I think his knee, he would not be playing if he wasn't 100%, and he's already been gelling with these receivers. I got to give the Colts too, but I don't. If this was week 2 for Nick Foles playing, even with the bye week, I would probably give this to Jaguars.
Yeah. Can the defense bail them out? I think that's going to be the biggest thing for the Jaguars. But we'll see on Sunday, I guess. Let's talk about the Bills and the Dolphins. Again, a game that on paper, you look at these records, one team should be the heavy favorite. But last time they played, Drew, Fitzpatrick almost stole a win. It was 14-9 going into the fourth quarter. The Bills wound up scoring a couple times. This is going to be a dangerous game for them, especially after last week. The Bills are a susceptible team. Do you think they kind of turn it around and revitalize against this Dolphins team? Or the Dolphins won 2 straight? Maybe this is like the Fitzpatrick era down there in Miami, and everything's right with the world for them. I don't know. They've been playing much better with Fitzpatrick here these past couple weeks, and we've seen out of the Dolphins all year long.
Yeah, it becomes a matter of playing for pride and playing for yourself and playing for the next game, the next year, the next job. That's what the Dolphins are playing. I'm actually going to pick the Bills, though. That being said, I think the Bills were embarrassed against the Browns. I think that they think they're a better team, and I think that at this point in time when they find a rival like this, where they're used to playing, yeah, they were kept at a close game, but I think this game is going to sit there and kind of maybe push it over the edge. I'm going against what I would think on the sense of like a normal Sunday. I'm going to say the Bills are going to go nuts on this game. I think this might be like a 35-7 game where Ryan Fitzpatrick throws 3 picks. This is a Ryan Fitzpatrick
now you're stealing
game
my thunder.
where he's going to be trying too much, and the Bills are going to sit there and take advantage of it, and it's going to be a defensive style game where they put up 2 touchdowns, and you're going to see maybe a couple running touchdowns with Singletary or Gore, whoever decides to run the ball at goal line.
Right.
It's going to be not a pretty game. It's not going to be fun to watch, but I think the Bills are going to win this pretty soundly.
I actually do too, and again, we've seen 2 great weeks out of Fitzpatrick. He's due for a stinker, right? This is how the guy works. I think your 3 picks is right on the money. I was going to say the exact same thing before you stole it from me, you jerk. But
we didn't even talk about it.
I know. It's just magic that we all know that Fitzpatrick is going to crash down to earth sooner or later here. And I think this defense is one that can take advantage of that. More than that, I think they're a very physical offensive line. I think they're going to be able to manhandle these Dolphins up front. And we're going to see the Bills run the ball enough that it doesn't matter if Josh Allen throws or not. I think they're going to be able to win this game. Miami's had 2 great wins. I don't think they get their third against Buffalo. Buffalo needs this one as much as the Dolphins. A lot more than the Dolphins do, but I'm saying they need this one as much as any team in the AFC does.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about our next game, which is the Broncos and the Vikings. And again, lopsided. So I'm gonna strike first here. I'm gonna say the Vikings win. I know I'm going way off the reservation here, but I think the Vikings should be able to take care of business. The Broncos, to me, running team, one that, especially with Brandon Allen under center, is one that really needs to establish the ground game to get going. They're not doing that against the Vikings. The Vikings are going to shut down that running game. You're going to ask Brandon Allen to throw, and then we're going to realize why the Broncos need to go get a new quarterback or get Drew Lock on the field whenever he comes back healthy.
Well, he's healthy. He's ready to go and play, but I think they're going to give Brandon Allen another chance at the go, as far as I've heard. And guys, let me know if I'm wrong. Please let me know if I'm wrong, because I'm not 100% for sure about that. But what I've heard is Drew Lock's ready to roll, but Brandon Allen is still going to be the starter at this point. I think all rights, he's earned it. It doesn't make a difference. I think this Vikings team is ready to roll into playoffs, and someone like the Broncos are just in their way. This is a Dalvin Cook game. If Kirk Cousins, he needs to kind of stay in the shadows until it's the playoffs time.
Especially with Von Miller there. Protect him again. Because this is the kind of week where he throws 130 yards and it looks bad.
If he throws the ball 20 times and Dalvin Cook's run 40, this is okay.
Yeah.
This is okay.
Absolutely. We'll move on, and we'll talk about the Saints and Buccaneers, unless you have something else you want to say about the Broncos, because I look at that game, and I think it's a pretty heavy favorite, which means the Broncos are going to win it. Every time we're like, oh, this is for sure the Vikings, we always wind up being wrong, so we'll see about that. Steven says, go Chargers. Raiders will be in first place after this week. What a turn of events that would have brought the Raiders to that.
First of all, Steven, I hope marriage is great, and I hope you're having a great first week of being married, man. It's a wonderful thing, and it's, again, the hardest job you've ever done in your entire life. So good luck to you, man. Beyond that, stop the hate, dude. Stop the hate.
Chiefs are on a slide. Can't argue with that. We'll talk about them Sunday when we talk about who's going to lose Monday Night Football.
Think of the Chargers?
I'll think about it. We'll get back to you. Let's talk about the Saints and the Buccaneers first, though, because, again, it's an interesting game. Even though on paper these teams are very separate when it comes to record, I think this game might wind up being close, Drew.
Yeah.
I think the Buccaneers have battled with some good teams. Teams like the Seahawks. Teams like the Titans, I hope. Good team, maybe? Who knows? They've battled really, really tough opponents this year that should have blown them out, and I think we're going to see that again this week. Even though the Saints got embarrassed last week by the Falcons, they're going to go into this one, and we're going to see the Buccaneers kind of hold them up a little bit, and then the questions start rolling in. Should Teddy Bridgewater be the starting quarterback? Are the Saints for real? All that kind of talk. And the real talk should be the Buccaneers are just a better team than people give them credit for. They can throw, and they can stop the run. They're not complete, but they do 2 things really well in the NFL, and that can be rare.
Yeah, I don't think Alvin Kamara is completely healthy. I think that is an issue with the offensive side of the ball for the New Orleans Saints. If he is healthy now, it would surprise me, but I don't think it's going to make much of a difference. The Bucs can stop the ball, so you're going to rely heavily on what Drew Brees can do with that, his thumb and on his throwing hand. Is he 100%? And then again, is Michael Thomas enough? Because that's the issue. Is Alvin Kamara brings that receiving threat out of the backfield, and we all know the issue with the Saints is they don't have a third option, and sometimes you have to have that third option. That's why you see teams like the Vikings or the Chiefs. I mean, just where they have that third, fourth option receiving the ball, it makes a huge difference for a lot of these offenses. And when the Saints don't have that, that's an issue. I see this game as being a shootout, but I think the Saints were embarrassed. If the Saints were not embarrassed last week, if they would have beat the Falcons, I think that this game probably would have slided to the Bucs. But because they were so embarrassed, I think that's what makes the difference. I think the Saints win this one probably by a last field goal. I think it's by 3.
I think it's close too. I think the Saints are going to win this one, but I think it's going to be a close game. And like I said, all the doubt's going to creep in. Everyone's going to say, man, Drew Brees barely beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah.
And then we're going to be talking about should Teddy Bridgewater start because he had such an amazing run when he was under center for them. But I think it's all just talk because this team is a much better defensive team with Todd Bowles at the helm than they were last year. And they're even playing above themselves. They're not a good defense, but they're playing like one because Todd Bowles has started to change his culture and Bruce Arians has started to change his culture in Tampa Bay. Let's talk about another tank bowl down here at the bottom. But it has draft implications.
Yeah.
Sam Darnold struggled a lot, looked a little bit better against the Giants, but still not perfect, versus Dwayne Haskins, who has yet to throw a touchdown as a starting quarterback. Drew, I'll answer it first because, again, we're going back and forth here. I think the Jets are going to win this one, even though I was very, very tempted with Darius Geis coming back in this game to pick the Redskins and say they're just going to run. But the Jets stopped the run. They don't do a very good job of guarding the pass right now, but they stop the run. They're keeping opponents to about 3.1 yards per carry. The Redskins are obviously going to be leaning on the ground game. The question I have to you is, will that be enough? Because I think the answer is no. I think if you put the ball in Dwayne Haskins' hands with this receiving core, he's not going to succeed, even against a team like the Jets.
Sean, by all means, please share our show, man. If your friends want to join in, please tell them to comment. That's what we're about. That's what Sports Around the Bar is about, is bringing our fans and NFL fans into the show and making this show about
you guys and what you think.
About the community of Sports Around the Bar, absolutely. What takes me for kind of okay. When I think about this game and I think about the Redskins and getting Geis back and Adrian Peterson and how well he's running the ball, there shouldn't even be a question about Dwayne Haskins throwing the ball. It should be literally a 1-2 punch, 3-4 punch of these running backs. You run these two guys. You literally, at this point in time, owe these guys nothing. Adrian Peterson is, 35 years old? I don't even know how old he is. You run him. Then you run Geis, and then when you think you're going to throw the ball, you run it again, and you just hope
Just
at
wait
some
for daylight.
point that they can sit there and break one off, and then you throw a ball out of nowhere. Dwayne Haskins should throw the ball probably 15 times this game.
You know who you sound like?
That's not a knock on him. It's because it's literally work these guys and figure out what you got out of them.
You know who you sound like?
Who?
Navy. Just run forever. Doesn't matter. 9 guys in the box. Doesn't matter.
But I think that's how
I'm with you.
that's how they
have to
can
do.
win this game.
And they painted themselves into a corner because they don't have the receiving talent to get to support Haskins.
And out of the 15 throws,
3 of them might be complete.
well, 15 of them go to McLaren.
Yeah.
That being said, I think the Jets win this game. I don't think it's pretty, to be honest with you. If this is a 10-3 game, it would not surprise me by any means. I'm going to pick the Jets, but to be honest with you, I'm 50-50 on this game. If it's the Redskins, it's 10-3 the Redskins. I don't think it's anything that's...
You take the Jets because you're afraid they're going to win, and I'm going to get the leg up on you.
It's because I'm a Redskins fan, and I just don't believe in them.
I almost took the Redskins. I almost did. And then I was looking at some of the stats, and I was like, Jets only allowing 3 yards a carry. Redskins are done. Like, they're not winning this game.
But you just keep running the ball.
Exactly. Yeah. Because sooner or later, that's Jeff Fisher. 3 yards works out.
Do you know what four runs mean? 12 yards.
But are you going for it Madden rules on every down? No, because you get to 4th and 1, and you're like, we're on our 20. Maybe it's time to punt. I don't know. I'm going Jets. I don't love this pick. Kind of like you said, it's a 50-50 game, and it has huge implications because if the Jets lose this game and the Redskins win, all of a sudden the Dolphins are the second pick in the draft again, and they're going to, because they lost the Redskins heads up, and they're going to be able to go get their quarterback. The Redskins are going to have an interesting choice if they're sitting at number 2. Do we stick with Dwayne Haskins and show him some loyalty? Or do we say, forget that, you're getting the Josh Rosen treatment, and it's time for us to go draft Tua Tagovailoa, or it's time for us to go try to steal Joe Burrow if Cincinnati doesn't want him?
Well, you got to always remember that the coaching changes everything. These coaches did not draft Dwayne Haskins.
Sure, but Dan Snyder did, and he's not going anywhere.
Right, but it doesn't make a difference. You have a completely different coaching staff. Even the coaches that are coaching him right now will probably more than likely not be there. So
You're not going with Callahan as your starting or as your head coach.
I guess it's a possibility, but if that is the case, that this is not their offensive coordinator, this is not their defensive coordinator.
Sure.
I mean, even if he is there, he's going to bring his own guys in.
Yeah.
That being said, sure, why not? I think, and I'm going to say this draft class of quarterbacks that are coming out are a lot deeper than people give it credit for.
Well, yeah, everyone's all in on these quarterbacks. This is what everyone's been
I think it's
even
deeper.
last year.
I think it's deeper than people are giving credit for.
Even last year, everyone was like, don't take your quarterback this year. Don't take Kyler Murray. Don't go out and reach for one of these quarterbacks because you have this next draft class that's going to be so deep with guys like Justin Herbert, Tua Tagovailoa. You got Joe Burrow, who I don't want to say has come out of nowhere, but he has looked a little bit more than pedestrian at LSU, and then this year he gets some receivers, and now he looks like the best college quarterback in the draft. It's incredible. Jalen Hurts as well.
Just because you didn't say it, my favorite guy, Jake Fromm.
Fromm?
That's actually my...
Even though he's kind of trending the other direction, where he had a great year last year.
Okay.
He's still talking about him like a first-round pick. Yeah, you've got 5 first-round quarterbacks realistically this year. It's going to be a deep draft, one you want to pay attention to, and this is incredibly important. Frank, good to see you, man. I think draft position is huge because Washington, if you get that second pick, somebody's going to want Tua Tagovailoa, or Joe Burrow. It's pretty much a consensus that those two guys are on top right now. I don't see a whole lot changing for that, but you never know. The draft process is always weird. If you get that second pick and you believe in Dwayne Haskins, especially like Dan Schneider probably does, because I don't think Jay Gruden was married to it. He started Case Keenum over him for 5 weeks. If Dan Schneider is all in on Dwayne Haskins and believes he can be the next starting quarterback for the Redskins, you can trade that pick for a haul because someone is going to want Tua Tagovailoa or Joe Burrow, but that's less likely to me.
Or Jake Fromm at this point.
Exactly. Someone is going to want that second pick. So, again, this is an important game for the Redskins to lose. The Jets are in the same spot. You don't need... Obviously, Sam Darnold still has everyone's favor there. They think they're going to build around him. This is all about trade bait. What can we do? And if we have the second pick, you're going to be able to trade it away for more than someone who has the third pick. Or the second pick, I should say. Or, I don't know. You know what I'm saying.
That being said,
I don't know what I'm saying, but you know what I'm saying.
That being said, we did pick the Redskins during the offseason to take this game. We're both going the Jets. We're going the opposite direction. We got our next game in front of us. We got the Atlanta Falcons going on the road to the Carolina Panthers. This would have been an easy game.
Just like last week. Or just like last game.
Would have been an easy game if the Falcons didn't show up last week.
And even more than that, just like we've said all this week. Well, the records are pretty different, but this game might be pretty close. If you look at this Panthers team, I think they're susceptible to the pass more than they are the run. I know Devontae Freeman is out for this game, so the Falcons will struggle on the ground. But let's face it, this offensive line isn't running anyway. They're not going to try to run the ball against this Panthers team that's very good against the run. I think it's all going to be through the air. And the question is, does Matt Ryan have what it takes to go and outshoot someone like Kyle Allen? Short answer is yes.
Yeah.
But the long answer is he's dealing with a lot more on defense than Kyle Allen's going to be facing on his side of the ball. So it's strength versus strength, Drew. Strength versus strength. I think the Panthers pull it out. And I'll be the first one to say it. I think they have been one of the most underrated teams this year because they have Kyle Allen, who at times does not look great. He makes some errant throws. He makes some bad decisions. But that comes with young quarterbacks. They've got Christian McCaffrey. They've got a much better offensive line than we've seen out of the Panthers for the past few years. They've got a defense that's playing really, really well, even though you can still attack them through the air. This has got to be Panthers. Even though they won last week, and it was in division, great win, yada, 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 Christian McCaffrey's going to bulldoze these guys.
I'm going to stick with what I've been saying for a few weeks now, as I no longer can pick the Atlanta Falcons to win games. I'm going to stick with the Carolina Panthers. It's just what it is. They've let me down way too much. Can they win this game? Yeah, they have tons of talent. Again, I will say it. I chose them to be a dark horse to win a Super Bowl this year. But they've let me down way too much. Regardless of Matt Ryan's flourish, the loss of Dante Freeman is huge. I just don't believe in this team, and that's not a knock on Dan Quinn, but I think he might be on the hot seat and he might be out.
Yeah. If anyone's seats got some coals under it, it's Dan Quinn. I totally agree there. Let's talk about the Texans and Ravens. Finally, maybe a game we disagree on. Perhaps? I feel like you're cheating off my paper here, Drew. I'm going to start covering my answers up because we've agreed all the way down the board.
You don't even have them on there.
I know, because we were late and terrible this week. Texans, Ravens. This might be game of the week.
I'd go first if you'd like me to.
Well, we've interchanged. I have let you pick before me, too. And I think I picked the Panthers first, so it's your turn. Who do you like?
I actually like the Ravens. Ooh, surprise.
Of course. Of course you do.
Well, then again, I said it from the very beginning of doing any fantasy drafts, and I don't know if I said it on the show because maybe I didn't want you guys to steal from me. Lamar Jackson was my fantasy champion this year. I drafted him in 2 of my 3 leagues that I take very seriously, and he's been everything but not amazing. He's been amazing.
Well, hold on. 2 weeks ago, there wasn't all this talk about Lamar Jackson. They were like, oh, yeah, he's playing better. They're like, he's throwing well. No, hold on. Last week.
I didn't say that.
No, I know. But the talk wasn't there. Last week, he destroys the Cincinnati Bengals. Good job. You blew up the Bengals. You blew up the Dolphins earlier this year, too. And I get it. They're an NFL team. But, and I'm going to say this.
I like the week 1 against the Arizona Cardinals, I think is what it was.
No, that was week 2. Week 1 was the Dolphins, wasn't it?
Oh, I
think you blew up the Dolphins first week.
It's too
the
long.
Cardinals were second. My point is, all this talk and all this love for Lamar Jackson, I believe in regression to the mean. I think we're going to see the Ravens that have now been talked about like, oh, Lamar Jackson's the greatest quarterback ever, might have a come-to-Jesus moment. He could be. I don't know. I was the guy saying don't trade up for Baker Mayfield. But, hey, whatever. It's whatever you want to do. I think we're going to see a little bit of regression to the mean. We're going to see the Ravens come in with an overinflated sense of self, where they're going to think they're better than they are, and they might come up short. And the only reason I'm doing this is because you took my pick already. I wasn't going to go Ravens. Now I'm flipping because I think this game's a coin toss anyway. I'm going to go with the Houston Texans. I think they win this one. They're feeling the pressure in their division. That's one thing that the Ravens are not, especially with the Steelers losing last night. The Texans are literally a game ahead of pretty much everybody in the division. I know Jacksonville's 2 back, but they're feeling the pressure breathing down their neck. I think the Texans need a little bit more. I think we're sleeping on Deshaun Watson and how good he is. I think DeAndre Hopkins is going to kind of make this secondary pay. Even though I like the Ravens, even though I think they're going to be a playoff team and a team to watch going forward into this postseason, one thing I will caution you is anytime a team gets all the adulation that you can give them, unless they're the Patriots, usually they fall flat shortly after, especially with young quarterbacks. When you start talking good about a team and everybody's in on them because you beat up on the Cincinnati Bengals, sometimes we see them come out the next week and say, look how good we are, and then they play another NFL team and get popped in the mouth. I think this is what's going to happen here. I think the Texans just need it more. I'm going to go Houston here.
Beyond the whole fact that I think Lamar Jackson was a stud prior to this year, to be honest with you, I give it to John Harbaugh and his scouting team. You know, the issue that everyone could have brought up was the fact that the Ravens defense wasn't anywhere near good. And the additions that they did, the trades that they did, where you brought in Marcus Peters and
fixed it.
They did. They fixed everything that you had a question about. And that's where I think that the Ravens are a legit team. It's not that the Texans are worse. It's not that this game is going to be easy for them. It's just, and let me even rephrase that. Deshaun Watson is a stud. He is a good quarterback. He is the future of the Texans organization. Is it a possibility they win the Super Bowl? Maybe. As soon as the AFC South isn't so tough, I believe that he could possibly win it. But that being said, I think the Ravens can win this game. I think that this is not just a hype machine that the media has given.
No,
I know you're not saying that. But you're right, because everyone's on Lamar Jackson's train. Everyone's like, look how great this guy is.
Everyone doubted him, and now look at him. And then usually you have that, and then he crashes back down to earth.
But you have to admit, I talked about him being a fantasy stud prior to this year.
Yes, sure.
And this is my point is I don't think it's fake. I think this guy is on a high train. I think this guy is in a very good system that is built around him.
Precisely.
Do I think that it will go on to next year or the year after that? No, I don't. I think Deshaun Watson is a guy that can be, again, the future of an organization. I don't know if Lamar Jackson just yet is the future of the Ravens organization. And I hate to keep bringing it back to the Chiefs, but you know Patrick Mahomes is going to be the future of the Kansas City Chiefs. And that is something that Lamar Jackson still is trying to.
Much like Ryan Tannehill, yes. Go on.
That's something Lamar Jackson's still trying to get underneath his wing. But something like the Texans, this team, it's going to be a tough win, but they should win it. Just like they beat the Patriots. Just like they beat the Seahawks. This is a tough game for them to win, but they should win it.
Sure, I agree. I think the Ravens are a slight favorite, especially at home. I like the Ravens here. Maybe in Houston, we're going to talk about the Texans being a slight favorite. But the other thing I'll say is you hit the nail on the head when you said the Ravens have kind of owned what Lamar Jackson is.
Yeah,
they
absolutely.
said it doesn't matter. We'll put an amazing offensive line out there. We'll put an amazing defense around him. We'll run the ball when we need to, and we'll utilize his legs. They've owned it, whereas a lot of teams take a guy like that, like RG3, with his mobility, and they say, well, we'll just turn him into a pocket passer. We'll just get him to do
and that's
what
why
we
I
want.
said you give credit to John Harbaugh and,
Precisely.
and the scouting team around him, that they're like, you need to bring in players that fit well with our quarterback.
Cardinals 49ers. Bounce back game for the 49ers? Or are we going to see another tight matchup for a team that kind of put them through their paces the last time they played a couple weeks ago?
Oh man, this is another tough game. I got to give it to the Niners. Because it was a tough game for them. But we both called the Seahawks to win that game.
To be fair, it was my turn to pick first, but I appreciate you taking the initiative. I was going 49ers too. It's hard to, again, they've lost one game to the Seahawks, and that was by an edge, missing their best weapons in Kittle and Emmanuel Sanders going out in that game, and missing Robbie Gould, who, let's face it, even with all those injuries, Robbie Gould's in there to kick that overtime field goal. They're still undefeated.
Right.
We wouldn't be debating this if they're undefeated. We're debating it now because they lost to a better team in the Seahawks. I think they're going to take out some frustration against the Cardinals. I think the Cardinals are going to have to pay a little bit. We're going to see this defense absolutely destroy that weak offensive line for the Cardinals, and we're going to see them. I think this one gets out of hand.
Yeah, to be honest, I think it gets out of hand, but I don't think you see a demolish of Kyler Murray. I think he is legit. I think he's going to be the future of that organization. He's not like a Lamar Jackson where you're still questioning it. It's going to be like one of those games where you see a young quarterback throw for 300 yards and 2 touchdowns, but 3 picks.
Yeah.
Like, it's going to be rough. It's not going to be pretty. And probably both those touchdowns will probably come late in like a last-minute hurrah.
Lamar Jackson, or not Lamar Jackson. I mean, Richard Sherman probably kills any receiver not named Larry Fitzgerald out in the field. He just kills them.
It's like a last-minute hurrah to try to, like, make – you were, like, down 28 points, but you only want to be down 24.
But we scored a touchdown. Did you see that drive
14,
at the end?
yeah.
I'm with you. We'll move on. We'll talk about Bengals Raiders next. This game, again, how do the Raiders lose it? They can't. They need to win, especially when you're talking about Ryan Finley not doing well under pressure. This is another week. The Raiders defense needs to show up and have a great game. We need Cleveland Farrell to show up and have the same kind of dominant performance we saw a couple weeks ago when the Raiders kind of took that game over.
Yeah, not to interrupt you, but there's a lot of players on that defensive line the Raiders have drafted this year that are really showing up, and I don't remember their names, so I wish I could give them credit, but Cleveland Farrell is one of them.
Yeah, and it hasn't been the perfect rookie season, but the past few weeks we've seen him step up. I think this is another game we need him to step up. This is the kind of offensive line you want to see, that 4th overall pick that you drafted ahead of guys like Josh Allen.
A lot of criticism.
Exactly. You want to see him step up in this kind of situation and show that, hey, even if he didn't live up to the hype or live up to the draft hype beforehand, he can step into this role and he can be worth the pick we spent on him. I want to see that out of them this week. They need to dominate the Cincinnati Bengals team because Ryan Finley has not been a quarterback performing well under pressure. If you keep that kind of trend up, the Raiders are in the playoffs. This is one of those games that, I mean, they play the Titans still. They play the rest of the AFC because the AFC South. So they have a chance to knock out a bunch of those playoff rivals on their schedule. This is a game they absolutely need to win. They've already beat the Colts. I remember that one. They play the Titans coming up here. The Raiders, if they can win this one and stay in the hunt, will likely find themselves in that 6th seed along with Buffalo in the playoffs this year. Buffalo, Oakland, what's going on in the NFL? What are these teams making the playoffs?
AJ Green is not going to be playing here.
So I'm going Raiders.
AJ Green is not going to be playing this game. He has a mishap or whatever with his ankle, trying to get back and healthy. I think that guy might be retiring. I know a lot of people think that's crazy, but even you can't get healthy.
A lot of serious injuries back to back.
It's tough. Again, I don't want to harp on Ryan Finley, but it's not impressive. What I do want to talk about is Joe Mixon. If you're talking about daily fantasy and you're looking at a running back that you think that might just be worth picking up, you got a couple $1,000 that you're trying to spend on a running back, Joe Mixon might be worth it. I will always hype this about all fantasy teams, daily, whatever. A bad team, when they start losing, offensively, all they do is run the ball. Joe Mixon is the stud there at running back.
He had 120 yards rushing last week. It took him 30 carries, but he got
But that's
there.
my point.
Yes.
That's my point is, guess what? He'll probably reach another 30 touches in this game. They're going to be behind, but he will touch he will get his turn. He's worth picking up.
Absolutely. And Rob says, who doesn't dominate the Bengals? The Buffalo Bills. That's who. And they're looking at getting a wild card. And we were talking about them challenging the Patriots. Look how tough they played the Patriots. You remember that Cincinnati game? It took a last-second comeback for the Bills to beat them. Same thing with Miami. They let Miami hang around. That's one team who didn't dominate the Cincinnati Bengals. The difference is that was with Andy Dalton.
Rob also says that the AFC is extremely weak this year.
I think the AFC has a lot of teams in the middle. Look at the whole AFC South. Look at teams like the Raiders and the Chargers and the Chiefs that are all like within a game or two of each other. And I think the Chiefs are better. I think they're underperforming because of the Mahomes injury. But there are a lot of teams that are in the middle and in the mix in the AFC. Steelers, Browns, still in the mix. Ravens, they look pretty good. You got the Patriots, you got the Bills. I wouldn't say the AFC is super weak when you compare it to the NFC, but they don't have the top level performers outside of the Patriots and maybe you could say the Ravens that the NFC has. Like, the NFC has, like, the Packers that look amazing, right. And they have the Saints, and they have the 49ers and the Seahawks that, like, if they played in different divisions, all these teams could be undefeated. They don't have that, but the AFC probably has a bunch of these teams that, like, fill out the rest of that middle of the NFL.
The way I like to look at it is the NFC, more than likely there's going to be a really good team that doesn't make the playoffs.
Right. And the AFC, you're going to be like, how did they make it?
The AFC,
how did Tennessee get
AFC is just going to be like one of those guys who are like, the five of you could have made it.
Yeah,
in
exactly.
the 6th seed.
Yes, it's going to come down to week 17 for the AFC. So I'm with you there. Let's talk about our last game, Patriots-Eagles. And I'm going to go out on a limb here, Drew. I'm going to take the Patriots to win. And the reason I'm going to say that is because there has been no better team in the NFL coming off a bye than the New England Patriots since Tom Brady's been there. With the extra week to prepare, with the Eagles struggling in the passing game as much as they have, this has got to be a win for the Patriots. They kind of got embarrassed, I think, a little bit when they played the Ravens, and everyone talked about, oh, this might be the best team, might be the best defense since the '85 Bears, and they got blown up real quick in that Ravens game. I think they come out with a lot more intensity in this one. I think Bill Belichick doesn't like sitting over a loss, especially going into a bye week. I think the Eagles just have some bad timing, because if this is the week after, maybe I'd think about it. Right now, with them having to play them coming off of a bye week, I think that the Eagles are very, very unlikely to win this game, even though they need one to get into the playoffs.
Rob says the Pats are the only upper echelon because they have a last place schedule. To be honest with you, man,
but the whole AFC East plays an easy schedule.
Yeah, I was going to say, be honest with you, I think it's just year in and year out with them. I don't think it really has. To be honest with you, I think it's just because he picked the Patriots. I'm going to pick the Eagles to win this game. I think it's going to be one of those against the grind kind of scenario where the Eagles might edge this one out. I mean, they're trying to play for a playoff spot. The Patriots kind of have it. I mean, they want to have home field advantage. Yeah, they come off of a loss and they have a bye week. They want to look better than what they did. But maybe they overlook past these Eagles just a little bit. Just a little bit.
Now, this isn't exactly what you call a stat. But did you see Bill Belichick's face when they lost the Ravens? The man was not having a good time, right? I mean, this is the same guy that was joking the week before,
right. And
everything else smiling.
And I'm sure during
the
bye week, it wasn't very good.
Oh, he was cracking the whip over the bye week. You better believe these guys are coming out motivated. I think the Eagles are in trouble. I really do, especially when you look at how their secondaries played. But I appreciate you disagreeing with me. I appreciate you going out on a limb here, because the easy thing to do is take the Patriots, right?
Well, guess during the offseason, we took the Eagles to beat the Patriots.
We also thought the Eagles were going to be better than this.
And you know what? During the offseason, those guys knew what they were talking about because they're beating both of us.
So that's your plan? Just agree with what we said in the offseason and hope it works out?
So far, it's working.
It has. Exactly. They're like 28 games ahead of us. As for Rob's comment saying that the Patriots haven't played anybody, yes, I 100% agree with that. But they've also dominated those teams that aren't any good. Whereas a lot of teams let those guys hang around and they lose a couple. Minus the Bills. Sure, they didn't dominate the Bills. But they got the win. And I think
they played a real tough team and lost.
Yes. They played the Ravens. They kind of got upset. It was their first tough game of the season.
Can we give the Eagles a tougher game minus the Ravens that they played?
Second toughest of the season? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not giving credit to Buffalo, if that's what you're asking. That let Cincinnati and the Dolphins hang on. Yeah, this is the second toughest game.
Yeah, well,
but they've also had 2 weeks to prepare for it, and that doesn't come around very often.
That's not a pretty stat for the Eagles, yeah.
No, it's not. So, like I said, I can't wait to be back further out ahead of you because of this pick at the end of the week.
At this point in time, I'm 2 games behind. I gotta do something.
I'm with you. That was it, I think. That was it. I'm going Patriots. I think they're going to dominate the Eagles, especially through the air, and then they'll run the ball too because it's the Patriots and that's what they do. Eagles aren't dead in the water. They need this one. The Cowboys play them the week after, I think, so the Patriots have a couple back-to-back difficult weeks where they're going to have to play teams that are going to wind up in the playoffs or at least in the hunt. I guess my question to you, Drew, here's my final thoughts are, if the Patriots lose this game, is there any hope in the AFC for another team coming up and taking that first seed away from them?
No.
Remember, they're on that 5-week grind of like tough games, and then they finish with like Cincinnati,
But they're not
Miami.
They're not going to lose 4 of those 5 games. They're just not. It's just not going to happen. Well, 5 of 5. It's not
So
gonna
the
happen.
Ravens can't do it, or the Texans maybe. If the Texans win this one, they're out of the running. You think?
No, I honestly don't.
And that's okay. Thomas is saying Patriots 35-7. I think that's underestimating what the Eagles are going to do. I'm not going to say that big of a win, but I think it's a big win too.
I don't agree with that either. It's to be honest with you, it's going to take a team going in the playoffs to beat New England in Foxborough. That's what it's going to take.
Or neutral site in the Super Bowl, God forbid, because that's the last thing I want to watch.
That's
is another
not what I want.
Patriot Super Bowl 26. But hey, they're turning into the Yankees,
Thomas
the
would
NFL.
be happy about that.
Yeah, must be tough being a Patriots fan, but that's okay.
I can't wait until they suck.
We will talk about all this action as well when they suck. If Tom Brady retires tomorrow,
20 years from now.
or then again, maybe they don't. I don't know. They run the ball really well. that pays dividends in the NFL.
Belichick coming out there with a walker.
Must get Super Bowl 49. We'll talk about all this action as well as the primetime games on Sunday night in between your afternoon games and Sunday Night Football. We appreciate you sticking with us. It was a great show. Had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I know Myles Garrett dominated a lot of that Thursday Night Football talk, but it's the news of the day, Drew. We had to talk about it.
Did he sack a quarterback?
He hit somebody, I think.
Okay.
I'll have to watch the video afterward. So thank you guys for sticking around. Drew, I'm going to kick it to you. It's last call, man. Any last thoughts before we get out of here?
I'm going to go with Rob's last comment. He says, Packers will beat them in the Super Bowl, the Patriots. He's calling the Patriots Packers Super Bowl, and the Packers are going to win it.
Don't ask me to pick in the NFC. The Vikings are good. The Saints are good. The Packers are good.
That the Patriots don't make the Super Bowl. That's all. I don't. To be honest, I'd love the Chiefs to go, but I'm a realist. They're not going to make it.
But if the Titans make it over them, you'd be okay with it?
Sure, why not?
All right, we'll be back on Sunday for more jokes like that. I'm Jake, your bartender. This is Drew. Thank you for sticking with us. It's been a fun show. We got some special thanks here.
Guys, thank you all for your likes, comments, shares. Again, it means the world to us. I don't want to sound like a broken record, but
you are one.
But
you
I
say
am
it every
one
week
because it means the world to us. Well, you know what? Screw you guys. How about that? Don't like, share, or comment on our videos ever again. But if you do, Jacob, Brian, Ray, Ken, Ray, Thomas, Will, Jacob, Sean, Steven, Frank, Rob, you guys are all awesome. But you know what? F you at the same time.
Have an amazing... Wow. See, I love you guys. This is why I'm your favorite. Have an amazing weekend. I know we didn't do a college football week preview, but this is going to be an amazing week in college football. Watch all of that on Saturday. We're going to know who's in the playoff pretty much after this week. We're going to go from 10 teams or 11 teams down to 6. It's going to be a good one. Watch that on Saturday. I wish I could talk about with you more. We are going to talk about college football going into next week. As for the pros, it's going to be great. I can't wait to talk about this on Sunday with you and everything that happens and how my team didn't lose the bye week. Can't wait for that. For Sports Around the Bar, I'm Jakey Bartender. This is Drew. We'll see you on Sunday.